Hello, my friends. How are you doing? I hope that all is doing well. I got a little bit of a problem here that you're probably going to end up with this kind of a problem too. And we're going to see how well you can deal with it. Because we're going to see how strong you are. I know. Doesn't look like it's going to be really difficult, right? But it all depends on who it is that's going to help you get your hands to where you can't move them. I don't know. Might be easy to get free of this. Might not be. Let's give it a try. Because our Bible story today, it's about someone who was able to break free of something that was really pretty difficult. Unlike that. So let's see who we're talking about here. If you've been a Jesus follower, what would you have done when they took his body down off of the cross and they buried him? Would you have run away? Would you have cried? Would you have not known what to do? Well, a lot of people did both. They ran away. They cried. They weren't sure what to do. But there were friends of Jesus's that wanted to take care of his body. But they couldn't do it because it was dark and it was time for the Sabbath day of rest. Because on the day of rest, that's just what you did. You rested. But Mary Magdalene came back early on Sunday morning to put the burial spices and the perfumes on Jesus' body. Now, as you remember, his body was in a tomb. Now, do you think the tomb was light or was it dark? It was dark. It was real dark. It's probably scary, really quiet. And that's what Mary expected. She expected it to be dark. She expected it to be quiet. That wasn't what she walked into. The stone had been rolled away, and the tomb was empty. Not exactly what she was expecting, so scared the bejeebers out of her, and guess what? She ran. She ran back and she told Peter and she told John. Now, what did Mary think had happened to Jesus' body? Do you remember that part of the story? You're right. She thought that someone had come and had taken it away. But what had really happened? You got it. Jesus had come back to life. Now I got a question for you. You know those little trick candles that you light them, they stay on for a while, you put them out, and a little bit later they relight? Think about that while we're going through this now. Now, why didn't anybody at that time expect Jesus to come back to life? Could it have been because they didn't understand God's plan, even though they'd been told? They just probably didn't understand it. Would you have? I'm not sure that I would have. Mary didn't know what to think. She was really confused. She walked in expecting to see Jesus laying there so that she could put on the burial spices, and he was gone. Now, Peter and John, they went back home, but Mary stayed by the tomb crying. She cried and she cried. I think I'd probably have done the same. But suddenly, two angels appeared at the tomb, and they asked why she was crying. If you had been Mary, or with Mary, would it have scared you when these two angels suddenly appeared? I mean, angels are really bright light, and for that humongously bright light to show up in a dark tomb would have scared me to death. But Mary turned around, and she saw a man standing in the garden outside the tomb. And the man asked her why she was crying. And Mary goes, "Why did you take him away, sir? Tell me, where did you put my Lord? I will go get him." But the man looked at her and said, "Mary." And Mary was like, whoa. She recognized him. She recognized teacher. Teacher. And she was no longer sad. She was no longer frightened. She had found out that God's power was greater than anything else she had ever known. Greater even than death. Now, that's pretty cool. I don't know. With those trick candles I mentioned, it's kind of like when the light comes back after you've put them out. That's kind of like what Jesus did. His light had been put out for 3 days. But then at the end of 3 days, he rose again. The light was back on. Well, how is his coming back to life a little bit different than that trick candle? Is there anything else that can make Jesus die again? Because with that candle, you put it in water, it's out. Completely out. Even if you put him in the tomb again, he wouldn't be dead. Anywhere that man wants to go, he's going to be going. Now, before that first Easter, there was not any record of anyone ever having risen from the dead again. But now we don't need to be afraid of death's power anymore because we know God's power is stronger than death. Absolutely stronger. It's stronger than anything, and we have that resurrection power with us today. Totally do. Now I got a question for you. I got a little bowl here. It's filled with popcorn kernels. They don't look like much. I haven't popped them yet. But do you think that these are alive? I don't know. It's a weird question to ask, isn't it? Let's see. Let me pick up just one. I'm pinching it. What? And I'm flipping it. It doesn't squeal. It doesn't say, quit it! So I don't think it's alive. But it has the ability to transform from this little shape into something more. And it's amazing to me that how in this hard little kernel that it has the ability to puff up into a fluffy white piece of popcorn. It's like a special power that it has. Kind of like that special power that God's put into each of us when we believe in Jesus. Now, I've got a section to read out of Ephesians. It's in the first book, verses 19 through 20. It says, "In his incomparably great power for us who believe, that power is like the working of his mighty strength, which he exerted in Christ when he raised him from the dead and seated him at his right hand in the heavenly realms." God's power is pretty strong. And he's given us a piece of that when we've accepted Jesus into our heart. So, how's his power like this kernel of corn? Can we do anything special without that power? Nah. Can this popcorn do anything special without heat being applied to it? Nah. God's power is in us and it can do amazing and surprising things. It truly can. So, got some questions for you to think about. How did the disciples use that resurrection power that God gave them? You have any idea? Well, they told everyone about Jesus. They started the church around the world. They healed people. Now, how did God's resurrection power make the disciples strong and brave? Come on. You can do this. They weren't even afraid of the people who had killed Jesus. They kept telling others again and again about Jesus. Even some disciples who were killed and put in prison didn't fear that. They had God's power within them, and they did as God had asked. They spread the knowledge of who he was to everyone that they met, even as they were in jail, even as they were being led to be killed. They had no fear because they knew that God was with them. Now, what is something that God can do to show you his resurrection power? Actually, God, I said that wrong. Let me try that again. What is something God can do through you to show his resurrection power? I know this is probably the hardest question because we're thinking, I'm just this little thing. I don't have any big part that I can play in this world. Even with God's power in me, what am I able to do? Come on. I know. One of you has finally figured it out. You can tell others about Jesus. You have the ability to tell others about Jesus. We've got this great technology that we can use. We can send a text. On Facebook, we can post one of those really pretty sayings that's got a Bible verse on there. We can let our friends know what Jesus has done in our life. That's how we can show others who God is. We can show him that God's power is beyond our imagining. That He is a loving and kind God, and He uses it to help us solve problems in this world. You know, it's a gift to have received that power from Him. And it's kind of scary to use it sometimes because we don't want to be made fun of. We don't want people thinking, ugh, she's a weird one, leave her alone. She's talking about that God all the time. It's okay. Those little conversations that you have with your friends, even if at that time they might make fun of you for a second, you've planted a seed in them. And that seed's going to grow as they watch how you live your life with God's power in you and how that light shines out of you, because it's with us wherever we go. So wherever you go, smile. Let people know that they are loved by God, and show them through who you are how that love can become theirs. I know you can do it. Because if I can do this, you can do it too. Because God's power lets us do anything. And you guys have a great week. Let your light shine, regardless of where. And I will see you later. Love ya.